If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that your season as an NBA fan did not go the way that you wanted it to. So where do we go from here? We're starting in the East today. We're gonna go from number 9, who almost made it to the playoffs, to number 15, who had absolutely no shot, starting with the Chicago Bulls. This year especially, but over the last 3 years in particular, all Chicago, all of the Bulls fandom, I think, has accepted mediocrity, but I don't in any way think that that is what needs to happen from here on out. If I was the Chicago Bulls GM, I would only have a couple of things that are absolute necessities on my team. The first is you have to cash out whatever you can on Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Vucevic. You have to get rid of those pieces that you have invested in because they are now becoming negative assets to your own team. Cash out however possible. And I'm talking like if you can get a second round pick, ask for the second round pick, because otherwise this team is going nowhere and you're not going to have any assets to build toward the future. You need to sell on those pieces so you can use those assets and other players that you have acquired in those trades to retool around the returning Lonzo Ball, who I still believe has all-star potential in him, and the emerging Kobe White. And if you'll allow me to be on a soapbox for just a second, I have seen what Miles McBride has done for Coach Thibodeau and the New York Knicks. If you give him the opportunity, Javon Carter can do the exact same thing for you, especially considering last year, his last season in Milwaukee, he had a career high in points per game, assists per game, defensive efficiency, effective field goal percentage, and he shot 41% from 3. You gave him $20 million. If you just use him in your offense, he can do that exact same thing that Miles McBride is doing for New York, and he can elevate your defense to an even higher level. The Atlanta Hawks. I don't have many great things to say about Atlanta, that's for sure. My one true piece of advice, I think, would be to just sell the farm. There's obviously many trade rumors going around right now when it pertains to Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. You could split either of them up. Trae could go to LA, DeJounte could go back to San Antonio. You can get, I would assume, at least a first-round pick for Nick Okongwu. You can get some sort of draft capital, even if it's just like expiring contracts for Clint Capella. You need to sell everything because your future is so bleak. My opinion is to sell the entire team with the exception of Jalen Johnson, because I do believe in his trajectory. And my last piece of advice is to just punt on this draft. I think we have all accepted the fact that this is going to be a weaker draft class, not in value, but in star potential. This team doesn't need a role player for any sort of metric. I think that you have a really nice, probably a number 3, potentially a number 2 option in Jalen Johnson, but you need a superstar. If you could package your picks in this year's draft for a draft down the line for other returning capital, do so, because it's going to help you in the long run. The Brooklyn Nets, also a pretty bleak future, if I do say so myself. You lost on the James Harden deal and the Ben Simmons deal. You got some draft capital back in the Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving trades, for sure. You don't have your own picks though, so that is really going to be a detriment to your own team. You could do a full-on rebuild if you really wanted to. Sign and trade Nick Claxton. He's going to show up in a couple different videos I have planned. See if you can call Memphis again. See if they'll offer the 3 or 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, or even Houston. I heard that they were interested in his services. And pray to whoever God you believe in that someone will be willing to give you any sort of draft capital for Ben Simmons' contract. The Toronto Raptors. I personally believe that you have a huge future ahead of you, particularly because of how well Scottie Barnes has developed this year. Coming into the year, I was really concerned about his playmaking ability and how he would make other players better. We knew that he could attack the rim and shoot efficiently. We knew his defensive acumen. We knew that for his size, he was a good rebounder. The playmaking ability was really the only question for me, and he has without a doubt proven that he can be a lead playmaker, a lead ball handler in that offense. I think you need to go all in on point, Scottie, and use whatever assets and cap management that you can to get the pieces around him that is going to excel in his playmaking department. For example, Bruce Brown has a team option for this upcoming year. It's $23 million. I don't think, as much as I like Bruce Brown as a player, I don't think that he is the type of player that you need to enhance Scotty's future and the Toronto Raptors' future. So what you could do is decline the option, free up $23 million in cap room, and use the other cap room you have to potentially get more pieces around you. I like Buddy Hield. I think that Klay Thompson could fit in pretty well there. I know that he's linked to Dallas and Orlando, but I also think that he could be a dark horse for Toronto. And as long as we're talking about dark horses, why don't we throw Paul George's name in there? Why don't we bring him in to mentor Scotty for the future? The Charlotte Hornets. I want to believe in the future of the tandem of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. Especially like the last 20 games or so for Brandon Miller proved enough to me that he's going to be a star in the league. The problem has always been for LaMelo being healthy. If you don't get 70 plus games of LaMelo this year, I think you have to seriously consider trading LaMelo to anyone who will take him. We also, much like Scotty Barnes did this year, we need to give the ball to Brandon Miller more. Today's game is really predicated on being able to do everything if you are a superstar, and because Brandon Miller has that potential, we need to allow him to make mistakes. This year isn't going to be great. You guys aren't going to go from the 13th seed to the NBA championship in a year. So allow Brandon to make a mistake while he's young, so when he is older, he can dominate the league. And lastly, I think that it's a pretty safe decision to pick a coach that has a good basketball mind and someone that the players could respect. You need to hire JJ Redick. By all accounts, his basketball IQ is probably, I would have to assume, in the top 0.1% of all people who have ever lived. So allow him to come into the franchise, create a culture, and potentially, because of his acumen, because of his ability to convey information, maybe you do go on a run. Maybe you go from 13th to maybe the 6th seed and you can avoid the play-in entirely. But again, that is also predicated on LaMelo Ball being healthy. The Washington Wizards. I have a script for this video, and the first thing that I have right here on what you need to do is pray LOL. And while I did think that was very funny at the time that I wrote it, I don't think that that is so far off base of what you guys need to do. It's not looking good. I think that Kuzma could be a very good number 3 option, as he proved to be on that championship run with the Lakers, obviously. I think that Bilal Coulibaly could potentially be one of the better defenders in all of the league, as long as he continues to get reps. And he could also develop a pretty good jump shot from what I've been able to see. Mechanically, he's very, very good. I just don't know how long it will take for that to click. Other than those two things, though, I'm not sure that Washington has a lot to write home about. I'm also a very big fan of Corey Kispert. He's obviously a lights-out shooter, someone that you can kick it out to the corner or the top of the break or even the top of the key, and you might as well just count it because it's automatic. So if you're able to get him in more pin downs, more floppies, more motion offense kind of plays that he can run and excel in, I think that would be great for your team. Outside of that, though, I only have one more suggestion, and it may be a little radical. You have to bench Jordan Poole. I don't see another scenario. He has proven this year that he is not lead guard potential. He isn't a good enough playmaker to be a pure point. He isn't a good enough shooter to be a true shooting guard. If you are going to pay that much money, you would expect a superstar, and you can't get out of the contract now. So I think that the only real thing that you could do is run Bilal Coulibaly at the 1, get a good role-playing shooting guard, maybe Dalton Connect. That's someone who I've always had my eye on, and I think that would be a really good fit for the offense. Run Corey at the 3, Kuz at the 4, whoever you want to at the 5, and then pull Jordan Poole off of the bench, because if he is a starter, if he's getting 35 plus minutes a game, he is killing your chances to win. And lastly, the Detroit Pistons. Boy, could we just forget this last year ever happened. I am a huge fan of Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. I think that that trio has a lot of legs left in it. You have to capitalize on it, though. I think as NBA fans, we expect players to do well from the jump, even if there is no reason why we should believe that. Like, for example, this is a very outlandish case, but when Victor Wembanyama came into the league, when he started playing his first couple of games, when he struggled, which there were games that he did struggle, we went, well, guess that's a bust. Guess the Spurs missed. Guess he isn't going to be this generational talent, and that isn't very fair. You have to allow players to get their lumps, and unfortunately, regardless of the suggestions that I have, I think that this is going to be another take your lumps season for the Pistons. There is one positive thing that you have going into this summer, and it's the $64 million in cap room that you have. But I'm begging you, please do not sign Tobias Harris to a $40 million contract. It isn't worth it. It wasn't worth it when he was in Detroit the first time. Don't do it this time. Instead, use that $64 million to get more role players on the team, specifically veteran role players. You are going to have to overpay. That is an absolute fact at this point in the Pistons' future. But I do think that with the $64 million, there's a scenario where you could get someone like Buddy Hield and Bruce Brown, and maybe even Gordon Hayward to come in and mentor these young talents to be able to brace them for the future that's ahead of them. You're going to have to brace for impact this year. There's no way around that. You're not going to go from a 15 seed to even a play-in spot this year, I don't believe. If that were to happen, you're going to have to see some all NBA level performances from Cade and probably Jalen Duren as well. But if you bring in those veteran presences and allow them to mentor the young talent, probably not this year, probably not even next year, but 2 or 3 years from now, you could have a very dominant trio of Cade, Jaden, and Jalen. And I think that that is going to be the core pieces that you're going to need for the future. Once that happens, once those three reach a level of competence and being able to kill teams on a nightly basis, you need to surround those talents with young role players, not the ones that are just there the mentor. That is the end for the Eastern Conference teams. Come back in a couple of days. We're going to go over the Western Conference teams. If you're a fan of someone in the West, make sure you subscribe, hit the post notifications. That way you know when that video goes live. And let me know who your favorite team is and what you would do in the comments. Outside of that, you can check me on all my other socials. I have TikTok and Instagram, and there's a Discord that you can join and build a community, and there's a ton of other things down in my description. If you're interested, check those out as well. I hope you have a good day, and more importantly, tell someone you love them.